This is UNFTR's On the Record for the week of November 3rd, 2025. Just one more day until Election Day. The Jays fall to the Dodgers in 7. Some cheeky behavior among Trump's top brass. Nuclear arms races are a thing again. Any excuse for a Mara Lago celebration. Katie Miller seems nice. SNAP benefits officially ran out. Futures are up. Mortgage rates refuse to go down. And, oh yeah, the financial system plumbing broke heading into the weekend. Let's get to it. UNFTR. Welcome to day 34 of the government shutdown, just one day shy of tying the record, which occurred during, checks notes, Trump's first term. That's right, Mike Little Johnson shows no sign of relenting in the House, and Chuck Schumer is holding his ground in the Senate, leaving Americans caught in the middle. SNAP benefits have officially run out, although a federal judge said the government was required to fulfill this obligation out of emergency funds. So Scott Bessent, you know, the man who lost billions of dollars running a hedge fund, which is what qualified him to run the U.S. Treasury, said the department was looking into how to do this. So hopefully something will get done by Wednesday. Now, the Trump administration is clearly despondent over the shutdown. So they took off to the other White House in Palm Beach for an emergency summit to determine how best to meet the needs of the American people in this time of crisis. I'm just kidding. They actually had a Halloween party instead. That's right, they hosted a Gatsby-themed Halloween party titled A Little Party Never Killed Nobody, which is a nod to the F. Scott Fitzgerald masterpiece about a billionaire who everyone wants to curry favor with, but in the end, of course, he, you know what, not important. Anyway, ever the playful billionaire, Donald Trump clearly got into the spirit of Halloween by changing his signature red tie for a blue one. Here he is, clearly having the time of his life, as only a man with literally no sense of ha-ha can. Now, Trump wasn't the only administration official having a blast these past few days. Take our FBI director, for example. Check 1, check 2, Erika Cash Money Patel.
Let's go to the videotape.
It was surprising to see Patel repost this photo on Sunday of him in his FBI-branded hoodie out on a date with his country singer girlfriend, Alexis Wilkins. Now, Wilkins was performing at a Penn State sporting event on Saturday. And if you're wondering how Kash Patel got there to support her, well, public flight logs show he took a taxpayer-funded government jet. Later that night, that same jet flew from Pennsylvania to Nashville, where Patel's girlfriend lives.
Kash Patel picked up his lady for a night out on a government jet and dropped her back off in Nashville like a fucking G. Now that's our tax dollars at work, playa. But the good times didn't end there. Further up the chain of command, just one heartbeat away from the presidency, J.D. Grabass comforted leather pants-clad widow Erika Kirk, and their embrace had tongues wagging all over the internet. For my money, though, it wasn't the embrace. It wasn't how he grabbed her around the waist as she ran her fingers through his hair. Instead, for me, it was this swagger. Look at that, JD. I mean, that is swagger. That is like Scarface confidence. That's the look of a man who's like, yeah, I'm going to be the president. That is, of course, if Donald Trump doesn't start a nuclear war.
I have instructed, he says, the Department of War to start testing our nuclear weapons on an equal basis, and that process will begin immediately. So there you go. The President of the United States saying that he's instructed his administration to begin testing nuclear weapons.
I swear to God, I know what happened here. Over the weekend, I watched Catherine Bigelow's latest government thriller, House of Dynamite. Personally, by the way, I thought it was awesome. I don't care what anybody says about the ending. This is such a solid horror movie. If you haven't seen it, it's about the 20 minutes before an apparent nuclear strike on the continental United States and the chaotic decision-making that occurs surrounding it. And I guarantee that Trump got wind of the movie, and that's why he's reviving the possibility of nuclear tests. This guy is so dialed into popular culture. It's why I'm really excited for the release of Bleach Man, all about a world leader who guzzles an entire bottle of bleach to prevent the coronavirus, and it makes him an immortal with giant hands and perfect cognitive functioning skills. And while the U.S. government is no closer to opening, we are one day closer to determining who is going to run New York City in what has become the biggest flashpoint election in the country. The Times reports that more than 735,000 early votes have already been cast for the New York City mayoral race. And every poll on God's green earth has Zoran Mamdani with a commanding lead over the field. In advance of trading today, stock market futures are up because why the fuck not? Nothing else is real anymore, so why should the stock market care? And lastly, before we get into Max Notes, our A-hole of the week goes to Bride of Frankenstein Katie Miller for literally warning Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks to check his citizenship status.
Let's go to the videotape.
Hold on. So what happened in the Holocaust and all the pogroms were disgusting. That doesn't mean that...
What a firecracker. No wonder Elon Musk has had trouble taming that cat. I mean, Stephen Miller. Okay, so last week, as we were heading into the weekend, something incredible happened in the market. And I'm on pins and needles to see what happens this week. So on Friday, the plumbing of the financial system broke. Yeah, so let's talk about it. Let's talk about interest rates and the Federal Reserve. No, don't go. I promise I'll make it interesting. So I know I'm a broken record, but you gotta see this. Every time the Fed gets together for an FOMC meeting, the media and the markets scurry about talking about whether rates are going up or they're going down. Did the markets already price in a rate cut? Did anyone dissent? How did the markets respond? What does it mean for borrowers? And then the conversation stops, only to be revisited the next time the Fed gets together. But rates don't tell a one-time story. They tell a continuous and relentless story about the nature of the economy. For example, Treasury rates tell us how other countries feel about the way we're managing things. Bank rates tell us about how the capitalist markets think the consumer's doing. They determine who gets a house or who gets a car. So there are two competing narratives, totally at odds with one another, by the way, when it comes to who controls the rates. Sometimes the government likes to pretend that it's totally in control of the rates, like when they set rates at the FOMC meetings. Other times, the government likes to pretend that, oh no, rates are set by the invisible hand of the marketplace. But the truth is somewhere in between. So the federal funds rate, that's the one that everybody is fixated on. That is more of a suggestion than a fixed rate, but it does serve as a guide, or more precisely, a range. So when the Fed sets the federal funds rate, it's not a fixed rate of borrowing. It's a range, a very small range, about 0.25% usually. And this is the range that it sets for overnight lending between banks. That's it. It has nothing to do with you or your auto loan, your student debt borrowing rate, or your mortgage. But the theory holds that this baseline cost of capital provides a benchmark for the market to set expectations against. So let's give a couple of examples before we talk about the broken plumbing of the system. So every day, banks and non-banks and investors, they're all tracking rate movements across a spectrum. The federal funds rate is just the one that we hear about the most. But there's also the secured overnight financing rate, or SOFR, the reverse repo award rate, interest on reserve balances, the discount rate, prime rate. So these are the big ones, but there are others, especially when you get into international rates and currency. So we're going to unpack all of this at a deeper level in a Midas Touch video this week, but I wanted to set the table to show the variety of rates that matter across the financial markets. So the federal funds rate range is very important. I don't want to suggest that it's not. It's like a general guide for the market. Like the prime rate, for example, is based on the federal funds rate. So in this way, it's important in practical terms, but also for optics. And when the actual rates in the banking system fall within this Fed range, then the Fed has the ability to claim that it's controlling the rates in the market. Now for the plumbing problem. The market right now isn't cooperating with the Fed. So the rates that are being offered in the overnight markets are higher than counterparties want to pay. So the result is that financial institutions are increasingly looking to the Federal Reserve to supply them liquidity within the band that it sets. And this gets us back to the repo market discussions. These are the exchanges where the Fed can either inject or extract funds temporarily by either selling or purchasing securities. And what you see in this chart is that banks are turning to the Fed to settle overnight transactions, which means one of two things. Either the rates offered from the usual intermediaries are too high for comfort, or they don't have it. So this has led observers to note that the Fed has, quote, lost control of interest rates in the market, and that we might be on the verge of a massive liquidity crisis. Now, the real story probably lies somewhere in between, but the bottom line is that this facility isn't supposed to be used in this way and is rarely, if ever, used outside of quarter-end periods when banks are looking to shore up their reserve requirements ahead of reporting. Now, not to bury the lead, but last week was bad. I mean, like really bad. So take a look again at the chart. At the very right of the chart, you'll see this tall blue line, which indicates the amount of money supplied by the Federal Reserve on October 31st. It was $50 billion. Now, in the grand scheme of trillions of dollars changing hands, it doesn't seem like a lot, but it's a really big deal because the Fed released $20 billion in the morning and then another $30 in the afternoon. That's pretty much unprecedented. So while you won't hear much about it in the general news, you can bet that all eyes are going to be on this facility in the weeks ahead. All right, 3 weeks down and 3 to go in our fall Fund, Friend, and Hellraiser period, and we might really do this thing. We are closing in on 500 members, which is up from 470 last week, and well on our way to our goal of 600. So thank you to our new and returning members for showing up. We've got Armut, Arkeen, Bob, Dan, Wolf, Taco Tom, Judy, LeMay, Kay, J Diesel, No Brainer 88, Max RP, Mitchell JH, M Scandinavian, Michelle D, Ray T, NLI, JB411, Miss M, that's my buddy Nancy, PS 4113, Miss Pennyworth, Wonder Woman, Wuntvor, John, Jen P, Rob of War, Newstat Kid, Ophelia X Ross, Ayurvedic Man, and Dave. UNFTR is entirely member supported, so this means the world to us. Just go to UNFTR.com to learn more about our memberships and check out our directories, our original content, and activist resources that these members are helping to pay for. And now, time for Killer Left Take of the Week. KLTW goes to Marc Lamont Hill of Night School. Now, it's hard to believe that this is still a topic, but the right wing just won't let it die. And though it's several stories below the intellectual edifice that is Dr. Marc Lamont Hill, he appeared on the Piers Morgan program to do the Lord's work and to teach us all how to respond to the persistently insipid question, what is a woman?
There's a difference between saying we disagree on what defines a woman and saying that people who have a more expansive definition are struggling to define what a woman is. We're not struggling to define it. You just don't agree with us. Trans women are women. Cis women are women. They're all women. There are different experiences. There are different stories. There are different contexts. And we have to be, I think, honest about that in applying public policy. But there's no struggle here. If there's any struggle, it's been getting voters to remain focused on the issues that actually matter. I didn't have an issue that Kamala Harris prioritized or paid great attention to trans women's rights. The problem was she allowed the right wing to co-opt the narrative and make it seem like that's all she cared about.
Time for Chart of the Week. We are digging into rates a lot lately because they tell a story that narratives can't fudge. There is a housing affordability crisis and a supply issue, sort of. Now, we're going to talk about the supply side another day, but the narrative around housing is that the Federal Reserve needs to reduce rates in order to pull down mortgage rates. But that's why we've been talking about rates a lot lately, right? That's just not how it works. Remember, the Fed funds rate, as an example, is a suggestion. It's a range of rates, and it's just between banks. Mortgage rates are set by the market, but they do closely track to the 10-year Treasury yield. So because people refinance and there are always new mortgages being written, the 10-year is the closest approximation that the market can get on long-term debt holdings like mortgages. 30 is too long. 2 is too short. So 10 is the Goldilocks number. But the real story is in the spread. So as you can see from the trend lines here, they always track closely in terms of directional movement, but sometimes they pull closer together. Other times they drift slightly apart. So even though rates are coming down, you can see that the spread between them means that mortgage rates are still elevated above that 6% rate. Now that's a frustrating spot for homeowners with an existing mortgage below this rate because they're sort of stuck in a rate limbo. And it's a terrible spot for first-time homebuyers because the rates haven't been this high for 17 years. And when they were, it was a financial crisis. So the bottom line is that they can pull the federal funds rate down all they want, but if the market isn't feeling it, it doesn't matter. All right, time for headlines. Our first headline comes from Truthdig, and it's titled, El Fasher's Last Stand, The City Has Fallen. So the admirable effort to draw attention to the suffering and the slaughter in Gaza has overshadowed the horrors that continue to unfold in the Darfur region. As President Trump rages online about Christians in Nigeria and opens migration for white South Africans to come to America, the British and UAE-backed genocide in Sudan continues with nary a peep from the United States. So, sadly, this war-ravaged part of the world doesn't contain anything that we find precious, like minerals, Christians, and white people. Here it is from the article. Quote, Britain pressured African governments not to condemn the UAE for their role in supporting the RSF. After all, the RSF is using British-made military equipment likely supplied to it by the UAE. Our second headline comes from the Intercept. ICE plans cash rewards for private bounty hunters to locate and track immigrants. So let's see. Recruit a bunch of out-of-work Proud Boys to wear masks and beat the shit out of immigrants. Check. Now part 2 of the nightmare. Use surveillance to track immigrants and put a bounty on their heads. Last stop will be a reality show, just in time for the release of the new Running Man. Quote, according to the document, which solicits information from interested contractors for a potentially forthcoming contract opportunity, companies hired by ICE will be given bundles of information on 10,000 immigrants at a time to locate, with further assignments provided in increments of 10,000 up to 1 million. And our final entry in headlines is from ProPublica. Red state workers could lose out on disability benefits as Trump administration rewrites eligibility rules. Now, we've said this before, but the blue states can weather this bullshit a lot longer than the red states under Trump. It's a tragic irony, I suppose. As the gilded administration of the nation's biggest grifter carries on in opulence and faux grandeur, the suffering masses that put him there fall further behind. Quote, these changes would fall disproportionately on some of Trump's most loyal supporters in red states. Most affected would be 50 to 60-year-olds without a high school or college education who have, for decades, toiled in physically grueling jobs, including coal mining, logging, factory, and construction work. All right, let's finish up with a little pod love and book love. Our podcast recommendation for this week is Current Affairs, How the Christian Right Betrays Everything Jesus Ever Said with John Fugelsang. So Current Affairs editor Nathan Robinson sat down with John Fugelsang, who's a popular political commentator, and the author of Separation of Church and Hate, A Sane Person's Guide to Taking Back the Bible from Fundamentalists, Fascists, and Flock-Fleecing Frauds. So make sure to check that one out and subscribe to the CA podcast if you haven't already. And our book love this week is No Bosses by economist Michael Albert. It's titled No Bosses, A New Economy for a Better World, with prefaces by Noam Chomsky and Yanis Varoufakis. So in the book, he talks about life under capitalism and the rampant, debilitating denial for the many next to the vile enrichment of the few. No Bosses advocates for the conception and then the organization of a new economy. This vision is what he refers to as participatory economics. Now, I first heard of him in a Chomsky interview actually a few years ago, and then I dug into this theory of participatory economics, or Paracon as he calls it, and it too is definitely worth a read. But No Bosses is a little more narrative and it's more accessible, so I think it's a great way to dig into Albert's work. All right, that's it for us today. I hope everybody has a great day. All eyes are on Zoran Mamdani, of course, this week. Hopefully by the next time we get together, he'll be the mayor-elect of New York City. And hopefully Scott Besson has figured out where that cash drawer is to supply all of the SNAP benefits. Links to everything that we covered are in the notes below. And on behalf of 99 and Manny Faces, thank you again to all of our members. We got a bunch of new releases planned for this channel and over on Midas Touch, so keep checking in with us and subscribe to UNFTR to get notified of new drops. We're really trying hard to hit the 100K subscriber mark this month as well. So if you're not in a position to financially support us, that's okay. That's a great way to chip in as well. And this has been On the Record for the week of November 3rd, 2025. I'll catch you online.
U to the N to the FTR. I'm fucking the Republic, meeting people where they are. Left, right, center, make you laugh, make you cry. Max brings the heat of a basic white guy. That's me. Could've run for office, could've got up off his ass. Hey. Could've made something other than a fucking podcast. But here we are, yo, the UNFTR show. Manny Faces ripping the script with the fuckers around the globe. Unfucker suckers on Canuckers, you're a fuckers 99. Down on the fuckers and some fuckers, they all like they fucking minds. From New York to Outagamie, Halifax to New Zealand. Say it loud, say it with me, yo, fuck Milton Friedman.